I even tie, quite frankly, the intangibles of G2 into their strengths, because I think that they are only activated by having these strengths. So what are the strengths of G2? They have a contender for best player at each role, at times in the entire world, not just Europe, the West, etc. They have players capable of playing both ends of the spectrum of the kind of role you can play for a team. So they can be the carry player or they can be the supportive player. Sometimes I think a better way to phrase that is you can be the focal point, or you can be more of the sacrificial element that gives up focus resources to the focal point or points. I mean, I would say of all their players, the amazing thing about the G2 players for me is everyone, with the exception, I think, of Caps, can be equally as good and equally as effective in terms of the outcome from playing as the focal point or the sacrificial or the carry or the support. I think it's only Caps that really has to be the carry in most cases if you really want him to be effective. Even then, I think he can be a good distraction as well. It's just that I don't really know that his mentality suits that as well. And you know what? If he really is, as people are going to say, the GOAT, the best Western player ever, why the fuck would you want him playing sportive or sacrificial style generally anyway? They're obviously amazing at comebacks. You can even just go and check the stats on that. They can keep games alive. They stall games out. They're amazing in wars of attrition. They're great at finding players in games that you think that they're slowly losing the game and getting choked out. They're great at finding picks you didn't even know existed and going for them. They're good at side laning, skirmishing, team fighting. Even as much as their early games been discredited or rather downplayed for the last few years, they had periods where they would look very strong in that regard too. They're a better best of 5 team than a best of 1 team. So let's look at how these intangibles feed into those aspects and create this team that, like, you could have all those things without some of these intangibles and you wouldn't have even half as good a team for my money. Even when they are entering games and series against some of the best teams in the world with bad scrim results behind them, doesn't seem to affect them. Even when they just lost the previous game, maybe even got stomped in it, maybe even fucked up the whole draft and weren't even effective. Doesn't matter to them. They have the best reset I've ever seen of any team. Even when they're coming off a bad group stage, a best of 1 phase, at this point in time, borderline their fucking standard MO. They seem to just instantly reset, come back, and that's why they are a better best of 5 team than a best of 1 team. And a lot of teams will claim that, but actually it's very rarely the case. It's really extremely rare that you're so much better in best of 5 than in best of 1s. It's the reason why most of the top Asian seeds win their group each year at Worlds. Their strength, their flexibility, the willingness of the players, yes, that all certainly helps. Like, if you are reckless or you're double lift, if you play badly or below par or are outperformed by your opposing counterpart, you probably know you're going to lose the game. It has a different type of a pressure on you. It constricts you and sets your expectation markers for the game in a different way. Pick any laner on G2 and they can still and might even win, even if they personally play bad or get outperformed by their counterpart, generally. Like, no wonder they have this freedom of how they play, this lack of tension, worry, fear, anxiety during a game, between games, going into games, because anything's possible if you're on G2. They don't need a set style to the same degree other teams do, because other teams cling to that for comfort. G2's comfort is in being free and being loose and being able to go here and there and experiment and experience the joy of creation, of play, of flow state, of being loose when you play the game, improvising. Improvisation, probably their best quality as a team, right?
If I'm being honest, and I think you'll never hear this from G2, the main reason to do this move is to wreck Fnatic. It's to be like, haha, you're our main rival. We've just took your best player, your franchise piece that you plan to build around and have as the face of your brand for the next decade. We've just taken that player, and he's our player now. Haha, joke's on you. Now, on that grounds alone, it's a gangster fucking move. It's actually pretty cool in some ways. Like, respect to G2 for pulling it off. Ocelot for having the vision to even think this move could happen. Perkz, whatever role he might have played, maybe he talked to Caps, I don't know. Maybe some scenario went down. Maybe they sold Caps on the vision of it. And the fact that, you know what, in Fnatic, they often treat Reckless like he's the face of the franchise, actually. You wouldn't want to come to our team. We'll make you the starting mate. We'll give you Perkz a spot. He'll be AD carry. Like, we'll do all these great things. They did seemingly the other side of the Fnatic equation. They did a very good job selling Perkz on his grounds, and whether or not it Caps, and whether or not Perkz was the one who wanted to go to AD carry, presumably he did. Obviously, that all came together beautifully to make the move happen, right?
Fans now just go, oh, you know, G2 had a genius read on the game and stuff. I asked all my friends who were the experts back then, and they were all like, dude, this is like, no one does this. Like, I don't even know how they figured out that could work. Give me some thoughts on this series, because this feels like another like movie fucking script series the way it played out.
I mean, our skins were horrible at the Worlds. We were just getting smashed by like everybody, honestly. we were like completely donezo. Like I can say that much. Like we were like just donezo as a team. Like burned out, and like we had some issues with like we had some issues with drafts that we just couldn't figure out. And yeah, scrims was just really rough. But then when we go on stage, like it's fine, you know, because we beat Damwon, which was like 6-0 in their group. Like it was 6-0 in their group, and we beat Damwon, and like honestly, that Worlds, like that was actually when I thought me and Mickey were playing super well. Like I thought, like hands down, I thought me and Mickey were the best bot in the world. Like, and that was like I didn't think that at MSI, you know, I wasn't like, I thought maybe Jackie-Lau. No, I thought Jackie-Lau was better than me. I wasn't sure if I was better than Teddy. Like I wasn't that confident, you know, like because it was just my first tournament. But like after screaming against those world teams, after like playing solo queue and all that, like I was just for sure confident. Look, I'm the best AD carry in the world. Like I don't know how to say it without being delusional, you know. But I was like I was just sure. Okay, I'm the best AD carry in the world, and this just sounded so crazy to me. And like we're not losing, you know. I refuse to lose, you know, like kind of like that. And it was also like I thought Caps is the best mid in the world. Like I just sat down. I thought every player on my team is the best in the world, and started with me obviously because it had to start with me. If I don't think I'm the best, then how can I think anyone else is the best? And then it went with everybody else, and I was thinking, okay, maybe Wunder has a mental block against the Shy. I just hope we don't beat the Shy, and we're gonna beat everybody else. so when IG lost, we were like giga happy because we were aiming for the title.
Fans never think this way. I notice fans are really good the second a match ends at just accepting like that's all that was ever going to happen. That was always going to be that result. It could never be. They just think like that. They think it's like a movie, dude, and you know like what the person did meant that had to happen. What they don't realize, obviously, is like probability exists. Like you know, if you wake up a different day, it's a different game. If game one goes differently, there's so many. So the question I have is this: obviously, you've never been back to Worlds final because it's really rare people make Worlds finals. You must think back on that one and think of some of the things you could have done differently or what we should have done to win, right?
Like if let's say we made it to semifinals 2019 and we made it to finals 2020, I can guarantee you 100% we would beat that final. So I can say confidently, I think I would ever beat Damwon. Like that Damwon 2020, I think we would never beat. We were sure weakening them. We could play against them 10 times. We would probably lose like 9 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10. Against IG, we'll probably lose like 7 out of 10, you know. But against FPX, just, you know, throw us back in the time, give it time machine, give us different prep for that final. Give us different prep, different thoughts, and I can tell you, we can beat FPX like I would say 6 out of 10 times. Like I'm sure that final is all about prep and all about our mental. Like our mental was so done. Instead of like doing some team activities and bonding, we were actually screaming academy teams for the final week. Like that was the most useless thing ever. Like that was like really useless, honestly. Like we didn't get anything useful. We were just tilting each other as well. We were super scared of the Nautilus mid. We didn't have trust in our own picks. Like we were just scared of what. Like we just got so much inside the bubble of our own. The way we operate the whole year was like, oh, let's think what enemy does and let's try to counter them. And that's how we played the whole year. That's how we functioned the whole year.
And a lot of credit to the wins against T1 in MSI and Worlds has to go to Duffman. Because also his way of preparation against them. Because we met, like, let's be honest, like, I think, and it's fair to say, we said team fighting wise, we cannot beat them on the fair ground. It's not possible because Korean just team fought better. So let's avoid situations. And he shows the patterns they do before every setup for like a Drake fight or something. And we could break them and avoid them, basically, right? Which is something that he made sure we do. For example, if you look back, Khan was the top laner. No matter what, he would drop waves to go to Drake. No matter what. Moment before. So we made the conscious decision of we're going to give them 4 Drakes. And Wanda hopefully gets so far ahead that he's going to have more impact later on.
Right.
So that stuff was all conscious. Also, again, by
was that also why? Because obviously the thing that impressed people in that series you're talking about, when you would like instantly trade like a tower for the dragon or whatever, is that why your team was so fast to respond? Because they knew the setup, like if they head in like this, oh, it's going to be like a dragon setup now. That's why they just knew already what to look for, sort of.
Yeah, and I think that's also why Korea back then was easier to play for us, because they were so structured that they had the game laid out from the beginning, right? There was no other way they could play, so we knew Khan is going to move no matter what. They're not going to think, how can we win next year? No, they're going to go for Drake and play towards it. So we knew, like, always in advance what they're going to do, probably. And it was still hard to play, right? Especially because they got to 4 Drakes sometimes.
Actually, along those lines, then, let me ask about Jankos, because obviously this was before you guys had won, and at the time he still had that whole rep of like he just chokes, and he's in all the semis, and he hasn't won the title, etc. Right? The thing I want to ask about with him was, I actually think when I look back now, I think everyone pushed that out. Like, obviously it was factually correct. He hadn't won LEC, and he'd been in loads of semis. That is true. But if I actually look back now, because he started his career like a lot of junglers, as like, I'm like a Lee Sin fucking pop off Elise, like, oh, gank everything. That makes you think that the guy's going to be like a carry jungler their career, or it's just ganking, right? But actually, if you look at the biggest strength of his career, he is amazing at fucking setting everyone else up and protecting people and covering and being at the right spot. Like, if you actually do that as well, you're also going to have the best people around you. You are the jungler. Like, you're not really going to 1v9 the game, you know?
I mean, it sounds all cheesy, but he was the glue that held the team together, right? I think at that point in time, no other jungler in the West could have done the same thing G2 that he did. It's not even close. From leadership to actually being also the counterbalance of personality to the Perkz, because like one funny story is after we lost the World Finals, Perkz and myself, we talked and we were like, okay, we have to be a bit more serious, right? Because we were still aloof as a team. And we went to Jankos and we said, come on, bro, like, let's try to change it, be a bit more serious in practice, right? Because he was the kind of the team. And we had the two most miserable weeks of our existence. Like, it just felt bad to go to work. It just felt bad to play. We like came back into him, like, come on, be the clown again. It's fine. We need you. And Jankos could just switch it, right? Like, he is very intelligent about how to like shift the mood in a team, I would say. If he knows his players well, and they also are open to it, because some players aren't, which also was an issue in 2021. But I mean, this guy's just a machine in game, out of game. Like, nothing but praise to Jankos.
What about you then, Mickey? What's it like to play with Perkz as an AD carry? Like, was he, when he first started changing the role, was he a complete noob? Did you tell him what to do in the lane all the time?
No, actually, we used to play bot lane even like 2 years ago. Like, whenever it was like off season, we just kind of played duo queue and he played bot lane because it was like his secondary role.
Fucking hell, this guy sets up his poaching like years in advance. I give him the dedication's amazing, you know. Like, if I was the G2 org now or any other org, I'd just have a look who he's duoing with right now. You know, like check for about a year and a half from now. What the fuck? Why is he playing with Upset? That's another AD carry. That's weird. Okay, anyway, I keep going, Mickey. I interrupted you there, mate. Yeah, okay. So you were playing with him a couple of years ago. Yeah, then you come to now.
But yeah, now since we started playing this off season, I liked that we could play a lot more champions, because in the past I played with Kobe and Hans, and they were more like smaller champion pools.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that he's really flexible with the champion pool, because since last year, majors are pretty viable in bot lane, and last year, for example, we couldn't play them. We only played one game of Vladimir with Hans, and that was a loss on stage.
Sure.
So, right, I mean, I felt like pretty good, you know, because like I had a lot of freedom in draft as well, because we could like flex even between us like some champs. And overall, I think he had pretty good knowledge of bot lane as well. And I just had to like teach him a bit about lane at the start, the first 1 or 2 months. But then I think he's smart enough. I mean, he picked it up really fast, so I didn't really have any issues.
Again, I don't know if it was in the podcast or private conversation, but I remember I asked him, say, do you see yourself playing a different role? And he said, yeah, why not? And I said, do you like AD carry or something like that, you know? He was like, it wasn't random. Like, it was really not random, because I know he plays a lot of AD, and it was this final comp thing. So I knew he could play AD. And I don't know why I asked that question, but I asked the question. And the moment I asked the question, I think he triggered something in him. And then we had follow-up conversations, and he was like, okay, so, you know, we're just joking around, like, you know, how do you sell yourself just playing AD, you know? There's a lot of very good mid talent in Europe. Not that much AD carry talent in Europe. So maybe you should do that, you know? And he was also the one, I think at some point, again, at the very early conversations, he told me at some point that he really liked AD. So honestly, it has been something actually very natural, you know? It wasn't, you know, if a good opportunity arose, he would consider playing AD carry. And that's exactly what happened.
See, I would think if you're the org owner, you'd be the one trying to talk him out of it. Like, you've got one of the best players.
I love weird shit like this. And I love it because, I believe that if you're a good player, and this is true for Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Rocket League, League of Legends, anything, if you're a good player, you know, or you're supposed to know every role, okay? any role, and you can play any role to almost the best of your ability. Of course, if you play tanks, then you require a slightly different skill set than if you play assassins. It's a different mindset. But mid lane and AD carry is actually quite similar in many, many regards. So I could see him pulling this out. So when I saw this as an opportunity, I was actually very happy, trying stuff out. I know for a fact that this upcoming year, maybe there's 30, 40 kill games because we have a very aggressive team. I will have a lot of fun watching, and the fans will have a lot of fun watching. I know that this team will win. If they don't, then I blame myself for it.
One of the reasons why I know so many pros have either attempted or even made super teams is because the dream actually is how yours played out, which is essentially if people themselves were a star player, sometimes they get sick if if they're really like the only star player, they feel like they have to carry every single game. The dream is, right, we can share, like I'll have a game where I carry, then if the draft favors you, you carry. I feel like in this team is one of the few where that actually turned out to happen though. Like the difference is if I think of some of the past teams that when my mate Upset was on Schalke or something like that, like if he didn't carry me, I knew this game was over. Like I could watch the game, and after like 8 minutes of the laning phase, it's like they're probably not winning this game. In your team, I get the feeling like any lane that was behind can still believe the game's winnable. In fact, even the style of G2, if people remember, was you didn't even actually have to have leading lanes anywhere. Like you guys would just make all the map plays and do the cross map and find a skirmish or something. Like this team feels like it must have been a very satisfying team to play in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably a 1 in a million kind of
Right.
thing where we were all really good individually, and we all had the same creative mind for the game. Like no one was against like the innovative style, like playing different champions, or even like kind of mixing up our entire strategy, like funnel or playing like anything basically that would like break the meta in a way. And we were all, as I said in the beginning as well, like really good at playing around like our individual champions as well, and making like plays that doesn't apply to every game, but applies to the specific game we're in. And everyone had the capability of doing something like that. And I think that's also something that helps when you're even behind, because this is how you get, at least back then. I mean now maybe not as much, but back then, getting back into a losing game, you have to make the creative thing happen more often than not.
Like in the final, like Jankos, obviously you haven't been in many finals in your career. Obviously internationally, you've never played in one of these big finals. Like, what did you actually think of the experience? Like, because the problem is it was kind of a shit game. Like, it might have been fun for you guys, but it still wasn't a great game to play. It wasn't like something epic that everyone's going to remember, like the back and forth and stuff. So what was the actual experience like? Like, why do you think it was such a bad game overall?
I mean, I think the opening ceremony was really nice, and I think that it was really like fun to be there. I mean, I was like super excited because the games before we played the SKT, I was like, I had food poisoning and I couldn't sleep, and I was like, just being in the toilet for like the whole night, and then I was just like overall not very happy about my performance against SKT, even though it wasn't bad. I felt like I could play better, and then against like when we won the 5 games, I was like super happy, and I knew that Team Liquid will be tough because they did beat IG, right? So there has to be like something to it.
Sure.
But I felt like our drafts, like first of all, we have blue side, like we choose first. So that's good, because we will kind of start the draft off from what we want, because blue side, in my opinion, was better during MSI. And then also, it was still Team Liquid. And so we went into the BO5, and it was fun, And I think the first game was like still a bit stressful. I mean, obviously everyone's like trying their best, and it was a little bit stressful because it's the first game of the final. And then second game, I could feel the hype already that we are probably winning this one, Like if we win the second game, it's probably over. But the second game was like a bit back and forth at some point. Like we were getting caught, they were getting caught. And I felt like after second game, it was just unlosable, because it's really hard to come back from a 2-0 deficit. But it just felt really hopeless for them. And when they picked Sejuani into Jarvan, and they picked like losing lanes, and we again drafted Jarvan, Zaya, Rakan, and they picked something like, I don't even know what they had. They had like, I think Kai'Sa, Sejuani, and some like whatever support. It was just like so hopeless for them. Like I just.
Oh yeah, You and whose army? Well, how about the Skrilluminati for one? They're the people who support my content. This video was kindly supported by The Concept, Matt, Pugnatio, Rajcula, Toucan, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Jasun, Banediesel, Animosity, and you know it, everyone does. A special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion, for the long-term support. Do you want to ask a question for my AMA videos? Would you like teasers? Find out what upcoming guests I've got? You want to suggest a topic or a guest? Maybe you want to be part of one of those 1 hour lengthy online discussions I do where the topics are set by you. Well, if any of these perks or more tickle your fancy, I think you know what to do by now. Put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati, where Patreon link in the description below.